I think self-defense was the main reason that I started karate. Since being a young teenager in the early 60s, I was fascinated by this mystical Japanese art of karate. However, there was no karate schools in my hometown of Hartlepool, so I studied judo. After a year or so, I started playing rugby and dropped the judo, but I still had that ambition to learn karate. When I was around 20, I was working in Middlesbrough, and a colleague went to the Middlesbrough Budokan Karate Club. I went along with him, and I was instantly hooked. My early instructors influenced me in various ways, different ways really. The first one was Fred Kidd at the Middlesbrough Budokan Club in '67. He was a tough ex-soldier, ex-boxer, ex-judo man who took up karate with Tatsu Suzuki. He taught me that strong character and determination to succeed was what I needed to overcome problems and opponents. There was also Peter Spanton. He used to visit the club on weekend courses. He was a second dan then, and I was in awe of his phenomenal kicks, and obviously I tried to emulate him. And this is why I think I've got a good range of kicks. I took my third kyu under him in 1970, and he was a hard taskmaster. However, he did show me what you could achieve technically if you train hard. Then there was Tommy Morris, who I trained with in 1968. He was the first professional instructor in the UK, and he gave me the inspiration to eventually teach full-time in 1976. When I joined the Terra Karate Kai in 1977, this is when I started training with Sensei Toru Kamizawa. His style of teaching helped me tremendously, and technically in the areas of kata and pre-range sparring, I credit all my high standards really to his style of teaching. On the sparring side, Tiki Donovan was the first competition champion to teach at my clubs. He came over in '76 and he inspired me in the competition circuit. My active competition days in Kumite were in the late 60s and early 70s. The BK National Championships at Crystal Palace, and locally the Northern Karate League, organised by Brian Crosley in those days, and the Northern Opens. When I started training with Toru Kamizawa, I was more interested in Kumite. However, his style of teaching got me more interested in kata, and this is what I started to excel at. I won the Terra Nationals in 1980, and the same year, as a group, we were the Cumbria School of Karate in those days, we came away with record medals in kata and in kumite. When I was competing, my best competition katas were Pasai Niseshi. However, nowadays I think my favourite kata would be Kushanku, because this covers most karate situations. I started teaching professionally in 1976. I'd moved from Middlesbrough to Carlisle in 1974 and started a club in Whitehaven and in Carlisle. With the full support of my wife Rita, I took the plunge and packed my job in and opened a chain of clubs throughout Cumbria and North Lancashire. As I said, that was in 1976, and this is the year that I started the Cumbria Open Karate Championships. This event is still very, very popular, and I think that's mainly because we get the best Scottish and England fighters coming to Carlisle. 1976 was also the year that we started our residential courses. We used to go away for weekends and week-long courses. Initially we held them in West Cumbria, and then we went to the holiday centres, i.e. Pontins, Butlins, Centre Parks, etc. And occasionally we went abroad as well. I find these are excellent for concentrating on specific areas of training, but also very, very good socially and developing friendships within the clubs. In 1977, we joined the Terra Karate Kai as a group. I used to travel to London on weekends for private lessons with Peter Spanton, and then to Birmingham with Toru Kamizawa. This is when we joined Toru's association. Chojinkai was established in 1980. I had around about a dozen clubs, all with different names, and I wanted to bring them all under one banner. Chojin means mighty group, or more loosely translated to karate, superforce group. So initially Chojinkai was only a name, but when I formed my own association in '82, I naturally kept the name. As time went by, Chojinkai has developed into a system, but I still regard the style as Wado-ryu because I still teach 80 to 90% of what Kamizawa taught me, i.e. basic kata, pre-range sparring. So Chojinkai is now a Wado-ryu based system as taught by myself. My original video, the beginner to black belt tape, was brought out in 1986. Now this is recorded with Tim Earle, and this tape has been a bestseller, with new videos recorded in 2002, presented in grading format. There's full explanations throughout, and this is a major improvement from my original video. I revised the Ippon Gumite techniques to give the student more of a balance between traditional and sport karate. There is a basic stage for beginner, and then a full Ippon stage for intermediate levels, and then we have an advanced level for brown and black belts. Bunkai is an area of karate that we practice in the clubs. This is very popular with our juniors as they enjoy the kata practice more, and the seniors can practice more realistic applications. Kata practice covers all aspects of karate training: self-defense, mental concentration, precise performance of techniques, fitness training and so on. When you perform a kata correctly, it will develop all these aspects. I tell my students, you have to live your kata to get the best results. In the 80s and 90s, this is when sport karate really came to the fore. The Great Britain team won 5 titles in a row right through the 80s. Visiting instructors who helped me with these sport aspects were, apart from Tiki Donovan of course, in 1976, Eugene Codrington, Tim Stevens, David Coulter, Dick Charles, and now of course Wayne Otto still teaches regularly for my group. I think sport karate is very good, particularly for morale in the clubs, and this is why I originally got involved with the refereeing after I stopped competing myself. I wanted to make sure that my students knew the rules when they started competing, and this was the start of something that was to span over 20 years. I started refereeing in 1982, and I got my first qualification English National Judge in 1983. I then went on to get my European Judge in 86 in Madrid, and then in 1989 I got my European Referee in Yugoslavia. I then got into the World Circuit in 1992 in Spain. Refereeing, I think, gave me an opportunity to give something back to karate, an activity that is a way of life for me and has given my family a good quality of living. I've been lucky enough to travel all over Europe refereeing for the European Karate Federation Junior and Senior Championships. As a world official, I've travelled to Malaysia, South Africa, and my most memorable, I think, must be Rio de Janeiro, when I achieved my world referee qualification in '98. After over 20 years at the top, I thoroughly enjoy the actual participation part of refereeing, adjudicating top athletes and of course getting it right. My family have been very supportive in my karate career. My wife Rita, although in the background most of the time, helps with administration, and she's also the association licensed registrar and secretary. My 2 sons Stephen and Michael were brought up in karate, attending the summer courses as small children and then training themselves both to purple belt level. They've both chosen careers involving sport and fitness, and they're working in leisure management. My main motivation, I think, after being involved in the martial arts for over 40 years, is teaching people. However, my own training is not based around karate, but geared to training in the gym. I try to get there about 2-3 times a week to keep up my own fitness levels so that I can continue to demonstrate techniques correctly and efficiently. I keep my karate practice to when I'm teaching. That way I can still have that buzz when I perform techniques, keeps me fresh, and of course occasionally join in classes with the black belt. VMA stands for Video Martial Arts International, and this was formally started in 1988. But I first met my business partner Tim Earle in '86 when he produced for me the beginner to black belt video that I referred to earlier. With Tim's media experience coupled with my martial arts, we developed VMA into Britain's top producer of martial arts videos, with well over 100 titles. I will emphasise martial arts as opposed to just karate, because we've covered taekwondo, kung fu, Thai boxing, judo, jiu-jitsu, as well as other world's top exponents. VMA opened a new world for me, if you like, and that is one of the media. Apart from martial arts, we've produced programmes for BBC, ITV and Sky, and worked with some very interesting people and sportsmen. The most memorable, I think, was Barry Mcguigan when we went down to his house to record him for a VMA magazine in the late 80s. I thought he was a very interesting guy and a phenomenal puncher. The other, I think, is Norman Wisdom when we went to his home in the Isle of Man to produce a charity fundraising video. I found him very funny and I found that quite entertaining. The standard of the students in my clubs are very high, and I think the reason for this, or the main reason for this, is that I've always conducted the gradings myself. Gradings from beginner through to purple belt are held in the club and conducted by myself or someone appointed by me, and the club instructor always sits alongside as well. Brown and black belt gradings are held quarterly on an association basis, with myself and senior black belts making up the panel. By involving the instructors at this level, at the club and also the association, it gives them a better understanding of what my ideals are, and I think continuation of our high standards. All my senior black belts started with me in the beginner courses 15, 20, 25 years ago. And I feel very proud that when I see them still training, teaching and passing on knowledge to their students, and actively involved in association activities as well. My role within Chojinkai now is that of chairman and chief instructor, with the senior instructors taking an active role in the day-to-day running of the clubs. I have many competent senior black belts behind me. They all have their own forte, whether it's traditional or sport karate, and it gives the group a broad basis. So Chojinkai for now and the future will go from strength to strength. I think Chojinkai has been successful because I've always been honest and straight with people. They know what is expected of them. I've set the standards in Chojinkai. All my senior students know these standards because they have all trained with me from the beginning. They accept as the norm what we do now, so they have good standards and transfer these standards to their own students. This maintains a high standard within Chojinkai. My advice to students how to get better? Well, I would think train hard, recognise a bad technique and improve it, accept when they're wrong, when indeed they are wrong. You should always strive for perfection, although you may never achieve it. Always have a positive attitude of mind. Have confidence. Understand the value of friendship. You can achieve anything in this world if you're determined and have the will to succeed.